One Guitar Junkie here. We're going to look at the caged format again. Some people, I think, don't understand quite why they're named the way they are. And I didn't make these names up. I learned them from fretboard logic, but I'm going to try and explain it. Starting with the C, because we're going to look at them in a caged order. If we circle the notes that are in a C chord down here in open position, now those are the notes that you finger, and a lot of people think, well, that's a C chord. Well, that's not your whole C chord. We mute this string, although some people let it ring. We have an open G and an open E. Notes in the C chord are C, E, G, and another C and E at the top. All right? Now, no matter where we go on the guitar neck, if we take C, E, and G, we're going to have a C chord. So there's our C form of the C chord. That's a C form open position. Okay? And you can see that there's a C, an E, a G. Well, there's a G here. Okay, there's a G there. There's an E, a C, and a G there. And if I were to circle those notes, let's see, not that one, E, C, and G, there, if we barred this and played that, there's another C chord, but that's an A form. Okay, if we were to slide that to a different position, we would see that that is an A chord, right? If you just look at this as if that was the end of the neck, there'd be your open strings, and there'd be your A chord. Now, we have another C, E, and G there. There is a G chord, although when you play a G chord, you can't hold that one also, but you have your choice down here in the open position, you could. But there is the notes of a C chord again. And that would be your G form. And then if we were to bar here and get our G, our C, and our E there, if that was the bar, there'd be an E form chord. You can see that's the same shape that would be an E chord, and that's another C chord. Okay? And then there'd be a D chord shape right up here. G, C, E, and if we barred across the open strings here, you wouldn't have to bar them all, because you'd have your first finger here, and then you'd use your second, third, and fourth fingers to play that. But if we were down in open position, that's the shape that would make a D chord. All right? And that's why it's called caged, because that's what order the shapes repeat themselves up the neck. There's a C chord open position. The next shape that we can get a C chord out of is an A form at the third fret, and you'll see that when you lay that bar, you've got the root here, your finger's on that root, and you're now barring the note that your third finger was on when you played it there. Now when we bar this one to get the G form, you're laying a bar across what you were holding for the A chord. The A shape in this C chord is now the bar in the G form of the C chord there. And then if you bar that, you can use the E form, and then you hold that note and get the D form. All right? That's why they're called caged in that order.